Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm working on my 041 and I was just checking timing numbers, correcting a few things. I even took this scrap jug that I had and came in a box of parts, another 041, and I guarantee you that this jug and the piston that were in it are the reason that saw was taken apart. This is not an original jug. This, though, is, and the reason I know that is right there. It says Mal on it. As a matter of fact, I think it even had, maybe not, I thought it said made in Germany on it somewhere, but this one here doesn't have any kind of markings on it. It doesn't even say Mal on it. So I'm pretty sure this is an aftermarket jug. It's also lighter. So it also had different timing numbers stock too. So these stock 041 jugs are about 150 degrees on the exhaust duration. This was also 150. The intake duration was about the same, but the difference lies within where the transfer ports are and the transfer ports themselves. This jug had a transfer duration of 128, and this one had a transfer duration of 132. Blowdown, this one had less. This one had like, I think it was 10 degrees of blowdown, and this one had blowdown of, I think it was 12 originally. So this one should technically have more RPM because it has more transfer duration, more of a or less blowdown, a lower blowdown number. But the swept area is the one thing I didn't check. I should have checked the swept area and I didn't, going from top dead center to when the exhaust port opens. This one's currently at 100. This one's at like 95. So I only checked them until after they were modified. I don't know what they are stock. I actually just ordered another original 041 jug, and I will get those numbers. I really, really want to know. So that way I can put the saw back together that this came from and use an actual Stihl part and make it run right. I want to have two 041s. I want to have one that's modified, and I want to have one that's stock, and pit them up against each other. But besides that, let's talk about carburetors as well. So this is a carburetor for an 041. This is a carburetor off of an unknown saw, probably a Stihl, probably like an 051 or an 076. You see the difference in the venturi diameter? Even the throttle blade is larger on this one. And again, I have no idea what this came off of originally, but it bolts right onto an 041, and I want to find out. But I think it's an 051. I'm not 100% sure how much bigger an 051 is than an 041, but an 041 is 61 cc's. I know an 056 is like 90, around 90, and an 076 is a little over 100. Or yeah, an 076 is a little over 100. So if this is off of an 076, I will let you know. I'll also let you know if it's off of an 051. Not in this video. But we're going to talk timing numbers. What I have used, what has worked. The timing numbers that this has currently, like I said, stock, the exhaust duration is 150, intake duration was 130 originally, and it had a blowdown of about 12. Swept area was about 104, 105. When you raise the roof, you lose some of that, swept area, and you also lose some blowdown numbers. You actually drop your blowdown number. Or I'm sorry, you'll raise your blowdown number. I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. So it went from having 12 degrees of blowdown to 17. I raised the roof, 10 degrees. Well, when you're talking about blowdown numbers, blowdown typically will increase at half the rate that the duration does. So if this increases by 10 degrees, then your exhaust duration increases by 10 degrees, your blowdown will increase by 5. That's why this went from 12 to 17, because I raised this roof from 150 to 160. Now, the intake, this is at 140 currently, and it is, a monstrous intake. It doesn't have quite the snap to it. I actually added 4 degrees onto it to try and see what happens when I put it back in the saw, and I did a QuickTime notch in the floor right here. You can see that little notch. And that's the idea of like a kind of a small leak going to a big leak. So it creates some kind of an airspeed velocity. And I stole that idea, I'm going to say stole it, from the Walkers, although that was something that Husqvarna is now doing, but they did it to Max back in the 80s to build race saws, and they would put a notch kind of in the skirt of the piston right there to increase the engine's timing. I thought maybe putting it in the floor would be better. I don't want to mess around with the balance of the piston and taking stuff off the skirts. That's just not what I think is the best thing. Because, like, say if you do break the piston or whatnot, you can just slap another one in there. You don't have to worry about changing the timing back to where you had it. At least that's my theory. But anyway, when it comes to the max timing numbers, it's hard to say, but I would say not anything over 160 on the exhaust on one of these 041s. The intake, it's somewhere between, it's somewhere around 140. I'm just guessing it's somewhere around 140. It was, like I said, at 136 before. It pulled hard at 136. I wanted to go 4 more degrees, see what it did. If it pulls hard even more, or pulls even harder, I'm going to add 2 more degrees, basically by using this notch. See what it does then. If it pulls even harder, then I know that I can go up to probably 144. And if I find anything out, I'll let you guys know. But so far, that's what I have. I made this little velocity stack for it. So, trying to get this engine to breathe. So I took a crankcase breather, I made a velocity stack. There's my air filter. So, airflow is the biggest thing on any engine. An engine's an air pump. So, the faster you get the air in, and the faster you can get it out. It's kind of the same thing with this muffler I've got back here. It's all greasy and grimy right now, but this has had the baffle redone in it. And the port has been enlarged on this as well to match. Basically welded up around the outside of it and tried to port match that the best that I could. I'll probably, before I put it back together, do a little bit more on it. But anyway, that's what I've got for you guys right now. I'm going to start putting the saw back together and see if I can get it running by the end of the day. Probably not, though. It's going to probably keep raining. And maybe try and get a video of me running this thing. So, anyway, I'll get back to you guys after I get this put back together. So, before I turned you guys off, I meant to show you what I did to this jug. I talked the timing numbers on it. About how, well, I'll talk about the swept area and how this is at 95. And this one's at 100. And the blowdown numbers, the timing numbers on this are 170 on the exhaust and 160 on the intake. And you can see that I've got this V'd floor and this V'd roof. And the idea was to increase scavenging earlier and to try and create more of a vacuum pulse through the intake to try and increase throttle response. The boost ports were kind of a neat idea, but I think in practice they're not going to really work. I don't get to find out what these timing numbers did and what these boost ports did because, like I said, the stinking ring wouldn't seat. So, like I said, I just wanted to share that with you guys before I put this all back together. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to share. If you look in here, maybe you can see this. I widened the transfer inlet, or the outlet of the transfers. I didn't raise them, I just widened the transfers. And I was really curious to find out what that would do. But, like I said, it wouldn't run. But maybe you can see how narrow that is and how much wider this one is. Should have gotten a flashlight out here. I don't have one with me. But you can maybe see the transfers and you can see the throat of them. So they're about the same size. The thing is with these aftermarket jugs is they had like a lip. And so I had to radius the lip here to try and get more flow. While with these stock jugs, it's kind of cast into it already. It's got this nice flow. Also, the roof of these transfers, these ones kind of go in and then turn 90 into the cylinder, while as these ones have more of a sloping roof originally. And I kind of played around with them a little bit, but not really. But anyway, that's the two differences, or that's the differences between the two cylinders. I just wanted to go ahead and share that before, like I said, before I put it back together. Anyway, I better get to it. So, turn you guys off and get back to you when I get the saw back together. Thing wants to walk off the bench. It's been knocking things off the other side there, but I mean it's a lot snappier now. It seems that going that extra 4 degrees seemed to make a little bit of a difference in the way that it acts. I, like I said, did not touch the exhaust duration. I did not touch the blowdown. Well, you can't change the blowdown without changing the exhaust roof. But like I said, that's at 100 degrees of swept area. That's with 17 degrees of blowdown. It's going to have pretty good bottom end, and it's going to have pretty good RPM as well. I think 15 is a good number for blowdown, but 17 is actually a pretty good number too. For bottom end, you kind of want to be between 15 and 20. If you really, really want bottom end, 10 degrees, I mean, that's not a lot. And that's what these things came with stock, was 10 degrees. I mean, that's going to have a lot of RPM and not a lot of torque. So I'm going to just confidently say 160 degrees is as much as you want to put for exhaust duration. Intake duration, I'm still going to play around with it. Right now, I think 140 is a pretty good number. Possibly 150. I'm going to keep playing with this jug, and we're going to see where it kind of starts dropping off. But like I said, with the way it is right now, it's snappy. You know, it's pretty responsive. The one thing that I don't like right now that I've got set up is it's got this chip. You've got to really, really be like reefing on this thing and getting some RPM up in that flywheel in order for this thing to create spark. It's like the one thing I don't like about these ignition chips. I would like to just go ahead and just put a condenser back, and I still have the original points for it. So that's probably going to come in the future. I need to find a condenser. It's not going to be that difficult. But maybe there's something wrong with this chip. Who knows? But I don't even know what brand of chip it is. It's definitely not an Oregon, because the way these stripes are, it's kind of something else. It came on a parts Mac that I've got on one of these 250s I've got back over here. That's going to get a different ignition system. It's going to stay points. This, I want to go back to points. I like points ignition systems. I don't see anything wrong with them. They work really, really well. But at the time, when I was trying to put this thing together to do a job, I just threw the points eliminator chip on and just took the points and points out and used the condenser as a post, because the condenser wasn't any good. Probably if I was to keep this, I should take the condenser, gut it, and just fill it with epoxy. But which might be part of my problem. It might be still trying to act as a condenser a little bit. But you know, like I said, the ignition chips are okay. They work pretty good, especially if, say, you can't find a set of points or a condenser for your saw. So like I'm trying to think of like a really hard to find a saw that's really hard to find parts. Maybe like a Pioneer, you know, where you can't find this stuff. Max, you can still find this stuff pretty easily. Same thing with like home lights. Stihls, I mean, that's a nice thing about these 041s. It's like I like experimenting with these and testing out different ideas. This like I said, this is my mule. If I want to try something different and outlandish, what's this? Is porting really that outlandish? No, but boost ports are for an 041. Maybe converting to reeds, that's kind of outlandish, but anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. In the next video, we'll try and do some cutting with it. Alright guys, how's it going today? Got a little bit of a recap on this 041 Stihl. Like I said, the timing numbers are 140 on the intake and 160 on the exhaust, 17 degrees of blowdown. Still haven't measured the quench. It doesn't hit. It's got pretty good compression. I've done a couple of cuts with it so far. It seems a little torquier, so I think adding that extra 4 degrees to the intake timing did help, and it might have been having a little bit of a notch helped as well. So let's go ahead and get some cuts on this. I've got my log chained in pretty good. It's not going to go rolling off when I lay on the dogs. This is a really hard piece of pine. This is a tree I removed, I don't know, over a year ago, and so it's just been sitting. It was a green tree when I cut it, and I mean, when I cut it, it had a bunch of sap just running out of it. So like I said, it's dry now. It's hard, but let's go ahead and get this thing started. Set my high idle. Like I said, you got to really kind of reef on it to get the chip to fire. It needs a lot of RPM to stay running or keep spark. a vacuum leak somewhere, so I probably need to go back through and reseal it. But let's see what it does. It can cut. I'm not just talking crap. I mean, it's not the fastest saw in the world, but for an 041, it's pretty ballsy. So, I do, like I said, I need to do some more carb tuning with it. That was kind of what today was supposed to be, was just tuning on it. I tuned it on the bench, but you really need to get it in some wood and load it. I'm gonna start sprinkling here pretty soon, but on the bench it ran good. I mean, it had 4-stroke at high RPM, but really when you load it, it's going to lean out, and that's what I wanted to do today, is to tune it. And it seems like it's got a lot more bottom to it. So with these saws, when you're porting, a little is a lot. 4 degrees doesn't sound like much, but going from 36 to 40, it really made a difference. So if that little bit of a change made a difference, I kind of want to go ahead and tear this saw back down and go through and put another 2, 3, maybe even 4 degrees into it. So we'll go to 44 and just see what it does. I want to add a little bit more into that notch. I don't think I would want to do anything else. I mean, like I said, the exhaust roof is right where I want it. It's got that magic number of 100. That's what I think anyway. Personally, when it comes to timing numbers, 100 is a perfect number for swept area when measuring the exhaust roof too. I mean, you'll hear me refer to that as swept area. Other guys will say they're measuring the height of the exhaust roof. That's the most common term for it, is they're measuring the height of the exhaust roof using degrees, and you can determine that. Most saws like around 100. This one, like I said, spot on it's at 100. So, like I said, taking 5 degrees out is about as much as I would want to do with a base gasket delete, and storm, you know, it had 105. I'm going to assume it was 105 because it added 5 degrees of blowdown. So what does that mean? Well, if there's 5 degrees of blowdown added, that means there is 5 degrees of swept area taken away. So wherever you take from or try to add to, you will take away from another area. You want to add 5 more degrees of swept area, you will take away 5 degrees of blowdown. If you want to increase your exhaust timing by 10 degrees, you will lose 5 degrees or gain 5 degrees somewhere else. So increasing exhaust duration, you want to go increase it 10 degrees, going from 150 to 160 for instance, you will decrease your swept area or your exhaust roof distance by 5 degrees. Everything, exhaust roof, swept area, whatever you want to call it, and blowdown related, will increase or decrease by half of what your exhaust duration is. So, like I said, that's all I have for you guys today. Like I said, it's going to start raining here pretty soon. It wasn't supposed to rain the rest of the day, but can never believe the weatherman around here. So, like I said, have a nice day, guys.